Hello, and welcome to Loaded Mag. We're back. We're only after finishing the Match Day Live game, but we're back on screen again. Martin was due to take this, but something came up at the last minute, so I jumped in as well. So yeah, let's talk about the game. How were you, Chris? How was your trip away? I never got to talk to you. You had a nice trip away?
It was good, thanks, mate. Yeah, me and the wife went away to Blackpool. I've got my dog.
Nice.
It was very nice. Yeah, very nice break away. Do you know what? It was just nice to have a bit of peace and quiet. We have a full house at home, so yeah, it was nice just me and the wife to go away. So yeah, really enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Cool. Okay, let's bring on our guests. First, let's bring on. We go ladies first. We'll bring on Holly. Welcome, Holly.
Hi guys, it's all right.
Not too bad, Holly. We're only talking to you about 2 hours ago, so yeah, we're all good.
You never know what can happen in 2 hours.
Yeah, a lot can happen. Let's bring on Nate. Welcome back, Nate.
Hi everyone. You all right?
Hello, mate.
All good, Nate. All good. And let's bring on. And do we sing Happy Birthday to him?
We could. I hope Holly's got a good voice. I don't know if me and Nate have.
I don't.
Okay, we'll just say Happy Birthday. Happy birthday, Chris.
Thank you, Thank you so much. Great.
And of course, earlier, Chris, you were bringing us on a tour of London, and yeah, Steve did put up the picture, but shout out to John Justice Allen who mocked this up right before the show as well. Nice little T-shirt. Happy birthday, Chris, our roving reporter.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Wow. I'm honored. to be on a T-shirt.
You finally got your wish on your birthday.
Wow.
So let's get into it. As I said, I have nothing planned for this. I'd have loads of pictures, and Martin had started putting up pictures and stuff, but I'm just going to try and wing it. So yeah, of course, we were playing Fulham today, our last game of the season. The final result was 2-0. Joe Willock scored the goal. 7-7 for Joe Willock, and yeah, we definitely want to try and keep him now. So that left us in, and we can look at the overall table in detail across the board in a few minutes. But that left Newcastle finishing in 12th spot, so amazingly ahead of Wolves, and where I thought we'd finish up a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't up in 12th spot anyway. But so, what's your general thoughts on the match, guys? I know we did the show with Steve, but general thoughts. Go to you first, Chris. Chris H.
Yeah, do you know what, as we were discussing, weren't we, pre-show? It was really weird. It was like a bit of a dream watching the second half. I don't know about the rest of the panel, but obviously we were 1-0 up, and I struggled to follow the second half, if I'm honest, because I was so busy looking at all the other games, which kind of mattered. Not saying that ours didn't matter, but in retrospect, it didn't really, did it? But I thought first half we were okay. I thought we kept Fulham at bay. Obviously, second half Fulham stepped it up, which I expected them to. But again, and I know it sounds like a cliche, but you can see why they are where they are. We were there for the taking. They probably should have and could have scored, but again, they've always had that problem with finishing, haven't they? And that's why we've ended up winning 2-0 and keeping a clean sheet, which is great for us. And I just wanted to add as well before I pass on to Holly, but looking at that league table, how have we managed to do that? Like, I'm not being funny. How have we finished above Wolves, Palace, Southampton, and Brighton and Burnley? That is just typical Bruce, isn't it? It is. Do you know what? I can hear Nathan laughing. It is actually laughable. Like, already a couple of my mates have been giving me stick, going, "Oh, Bruce, do you still want Bruce out?" And I'm like, "Of course I want Bruce out." That position doesn't change anything. I mean, you know, I begrudgingly, and I've said it over the last few weeks, and I'll say it again now. I will give him credit because he got a tune out with the players, and you know the table doesn't lie. We are 12th. He's took us to the highest possible finish that we cut off before the match is kicked off today. But he's a lucky boy though, and he is a lucky boy that he's managed to get us on 45 points. It's incredible.
It is, and you know what? But now that he has got us there, Is he brainwashing me or something? But I don't know. Like with him and Gray and Jones next, is it going to be like we're going to be waiting for the takeover? You know, I can't see it happening straight away over the summer. Like, and I did. I was saying a few weeks ago. Yeah, I definitely want someone else in there. I still definitely want someone else in there to start next season. But I don't know. It's just with like we're starting next season with him and Graham Jones. Graham Jones brings a bit of some tactics to the table. Like, if we didn't have as many injuries this season. No, I'm sounding like we see Bruce making excuses. No, I still want him out.
Do you know what? Do you know what, mate? I totally take your point, and you do find yourself doubting yourself a little bit, because especially when Bruce comes out with stuff like, knew it'd be okay, and see, look where we are now, and you do start thinking, was this all part of a bigger plan? I mean, I don't think it was. I think he has just got literally so lucky. He has touched lucky, and obviously Joe Willock's form's been fantastic. Callum Wilson coming back has made a big difference. St. Maximin staying fit has been big. But do you know what? To take your point there, Daz, what you've got to remember is, let's say we sack Bruce tomorrow, and we'd all be going, "Yay, great!" And there's no takeover. Who are we going to get instead of Bruce? And basically, when they have that conversation with Mike Ashley, they're like, "Yeah, great. So come in. You're not going to have any money. There's an impending takeover where you might get sacked next week. You might not. It's not very attractive, is it? So I think, and I hate to use this expression because I've used it a couple of times, but it is better the devil you know. Bruce is only going to be better next season, having got through this, but he's got to remember that the fans don't forget things, and we've watched 38 games of Newcastle this season, and all right, the last 9 or 10 have been palatable. The ones before that weren't. And you take Joe Willock out this team, you take a couple of really important players out this team, who I'm assuming are going to go. And if he doesn't bring the right players in, or he makes a bad start to the season, 4, 5, 6 games in, and we've had a poor start, those boos are going to start coming, and then that's when the pressure will start kicking in.
That's when he'll crumble. Holly, your thoughts on the game?
The game was worse than I expected it to be. I said on the last show that I would have went for a 5-1 win, and to be honest, I don't think there's a reason why we couldn't have done it right, because Fulham were nothing special, like, at all. They were pretty rubbish. I was expecting them to have a bit more fight than they did, to be honest, but Newcastle were just kind of flip-flops on, thinking of the holidays, didn't really put in the effort that I think they could have. We still won 2-0, so I'm still happy with it. I'm not going to sit and complain, but I think we could have done better, to be honest. But Fabian Schär's penalty, I absolutely love that, because Schär, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't really get the hype. I don't see what's great about him." But I'm a massive Schär fan. And then when he took that penalty, I just thought, wow, like, it was so funny. And it's not the first time he's done it either. So brilliant. But finishing 12th in the league, I said, like, would you have ever believed that? Like, it's madness. I mean, 17th, you would have snapped Bruce's hand off for that, like, at the start of, like, the season even, but like it's certainly around the December time. But then now to finish 12th, you just can't believe it. Like, I keep thinking it's like some type of joke or something. I keep rechecking to see if it's changed, honestly. But 12th, really good. We'll get obviously the extra 8 million now, which hopefully gets reinvested into the squad, because we do need to reinvest in the summer. Finally, to touch on your point about Bruce, I think you were close to saying it, but you were too scared to actually say it. I will say it. I'd be happy to see Bruce stay next season if we're in the same position.
Thanks, Holly. Good luck. Bye-bye. That was Holly. See, you don't say it. You can bring it so far, but you can't actually say it. We get Holly back on. Sorry, Holly.
No, but like, wait, I was about to explain it.
You're right. You're right. You are right.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't want to see it, because they're going to worry they get criticised or whatever about, like, Bruce haters and stuff like this or whatever, and it's quite like a bold opinion to have that a lot of people don't want to. But at the end of the day, right, Bruce, yes, he's been shocking. We've called for him, like, to leave all season. Realistically, in an ideal world, you'd still want him to go, but he's not going to. Mike Ashley made that clear. And now it's looking like the takeover is going to roll on into next season. If that is the case, we're not going to get anyone better than Bruce. No one's going to want that job. It's an awful job for any manager to have. It's really, really a hard job. Like, I'm not even going to beat around the bush with it. So fair enough, just keep Bruce on. He started to build something a little bit, and just, if we can then get the takeover, then get rid of him. But going into the season, if things haven't changed, just keep Bruce.
Cheers,
Bruce in.
Shout out
Not going
to
that far.
that reminds me, before we go to Nate, and I forget this bit, because Martin usually does this bit. Shout out to Centre Ale.
Yeah.
They are somewhere in Newcastle near a train station. That's all I know. I've
It's
only ever been to...
Newcastle Central. It is based in Newcastle Central Station.
Cool. And call in to Bruce, tell him we sent you, and he will sort you out. He'll tell you what to buy, and you'll have a great night. There you go. That's what more could you ask for. That's Centre Ale. Nate, let's get to you and your thoughts on the match.
Yeah, I think it was a very kind of pedestrian game, wasn't it, today? I think we all probably expected something along those lines. I did expect a few more goals, to be honest. I thought we'd be probably quite leaky, and I thought they would probably be. But I think both teams were a bit toothless, really, in the end. I think Fulham have when they were on a really good run, weren't they? About 6 games back, a little bit more than that, when they really caught up on where we were, and we were playing terrible at that time. But I think they had the stuffing knocked out of them a little bit, didn't they? I think in the past sort of 6, 7, 8 games, and they've looked really flat and deflated for a few weeks now. I think they dropped a lot of points from when they were 1-0 up, and they've conceded and they've ended up losing when they were drawing and things like that. I think that really killed them off in the running, didn't it? And we were all worried about them picking up points all over the place, weren't we? And we were saying that we weren't going to get any more points. We were looking at the last 2 games, the Sheffield and Fulham game. But it's funny how these things kind of turn around, isn't it? But yeah, I thought it was an okay game. Like Chris said, I was more invested in some of the chat that was going on the show, to be honest, and all the stuff getting said in the comments and stuff. I was more interested in that by the second half. I zoned out of it completely, and I was like 2 minutes behind as well. So it's always a bit shit watching it when you're like 2 minutes behind and people are grimacing and shouting and stuff before you've even seen what's going on. But yeah, talking about, I guess, the season in general, it's I don't know. I know you're all saying you want me. To me, I get the point that who's going to want to come and take the job, but we've already got someone in the club who would already be an improvement given the full reins of the club. I think if we got rid of Bruce, I think we'd be in far better hands if we just let Graham Jones take over. I think some of the ideas he's brought in have shaped the season for us and shaped the resurgence that we've had. Definitely, you can see that in the form and the way that the season panned out, with that massive void in the middle of it, where it was just no point, held any points gained and draws, no wins. I think we'd be in much better hands if he took over, to be honest. I think we've kind of seen his influence on the team, but I think I've mentioned a few times that I think he made a big impact when he came in, but I think that really got Bruce's back up. I think Bruce has got a bit of a fragile ego. I think he was very sort of perturbed by people giving Graham Jones all the plaudits from that initial win when he came in against Everton. I think that kind of stifled Graham Jones' involvement a bit. We saw him sent to the stands, didn't we, on a few occasions, and coming down at half time. And I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? It's just petty and childish for me. And it was said so could get a better view of the game, but come on, like, not really. And yeah, we saw Steve Bruce the other week on TalkSport saying, what did he say? Oh, it was my choice to get him in. I don't think it was. I don't for a second think it was his choice to get him in. No way. But yeah, I don't want another season under Bruce. I prefer Graham Jones to take over full time. But credit where credit's due. They've turned it around and they've had a bit of a rally towards the end of the season, which is seen as very comfortable, isn't it? I was speaking to a mate of mine just after the game, and he was saying, I was saying that's the biggest con ever that we finished 12. And he's like, well, you finish where you deserve to finish at the end of the day. The points don't lie. And I said, well, true, but we've probably been like the...
do lie.
Probably we've been one of the worst. I think we've probably been one of the worst teams to watch, haven't we, across the board? Like, even Fulham have played better stuff than us. I know they've been dreadful in the running, but I think they were playing better football than us for the majority of the season, probably. I know we were bottom of a lot of the attacking stats and things like that, but yeah, I think it's a very false position, but the accumulation of points doesn't lie, does it? So we're told.
Nate, just one thing to pick up on, just on Graham Jones, and I'm with you, and why not give Graham Jones the reins if it's all down to him? But why hasn't it worked out for him then at other clubs? Like, why he's been a coach, he's been a manager as well. Why hasn't it worked out for him somewhere else? You know, because
was it Luton?
Luton, I think. Yeah, Luton.
So that was his first full management job, wasn't it? I think it's I think he's. It works for different people at different times, doesn't it? We've seen people be coaches. The guy that springs to mind, was he like a Swansea coach and he went to Real Madrid? Do you remember Paul Clements? Was he called? He went to Real Madrid. Didn't
he?
Yes.
He
was an assistant at Real Madrid.
Derby County he came back to as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and he came back and he was sort of less than, I don't know what he's doing now, but he wasn't very impressive, was he? In a lot of those, he was touted to be one of the next big things. I think it's down to circumstance, really. I'm not sure. But what I do see, one of the myths that was going around at the start of the season, and everyone was saying it on like the shows and stuff, saying, Bruce is a cracking man manager. He might not be a tactician, but he's a man manager. But to be honest, I've said it numerous times. I don't think he's a man manager either, because you've seen him fall out with people left, right, and centre. He can't speak to journalists. He's got no decorum and grace about how he carries himself in his press conferences. He's petty and childish, isn't he, at best? And he's got his son firefighting for him on Twitter every day, blocking Newcastle fans, giving us shit and stuff. And it's like, I don't think he is. I think he's just part of that old boys club, isn't it? That we've talked about. Like, he's pally with the people that are in the positions in the media, and that's about it, really. But yeah, I wouldn't. It was clear that we had a distinct change in formation and play style when Graham Jones came in, and the photos of him from the first game when he was walking off the pitch with his arm around Callum Wilson at the Everton game, and he was on the touchline, wasn't he, like gesticulating to people, telling him where to be and what to do and stuff, and you could see behind him in the shot like Agnew and Clements and Bruce stood there like they were three grandmas waiting for a bus, didn't they? So. It's clear that he's more involved, he's more tactically minded. So I don't think it'd be a bad shout, to be honest. And I think if you had to give me the choice between the two, even despite Graham Jones's maybe unproven track record or less than impressive track record as a full-time manager, I'd still rather give it to him.
Nice one, Nate. That's a definite Bruce in from Nate. Then let's go to you, Chris. And I know you were on part of match day life, but you were out and about roving on your birthday, of course. So what was your thoughts on the game?
So after the Brighton match, I think all of us would have thought that we would be lucky to finish 17th and not relegated, because we thought sort of after Brighton, things looked dire. I think 12th is more than we deserve, more than Bruce deserves, for sure. I think a couple of weeks ago when we were all sort of making the predictions of where we'd finish, I think the average was kind of 15th, 16th. And no one had 14th or 13th or 12th for sure. So I think sort of the cards kind of fell into place for Newcastle to finish in the 12th position. But I don't want to go into the next season or any season thinking, well, at worst we're 12th or 13th, because I don't think that Bruce is a mid-table manager. I don't think that Newcastle, the best we can strive for is a mid-table club. I think that we don't talk about ambition, but the club has an ambition to be better than 12th or 13th every season, and we don't want a manager or an owner that is satisfied with finishing 17th and not being relegated. As far as the match, just kind of being in Fulham, being very close to the stadium, the fans had sort of a resigned sort of how would you call it? Sort of a black humor about the club and about the final match of the season, knowing that they were relegated, and sort of wanting to get a result, of course. But, not getting a result was not the end of the world, because they knew that it wouldn't have changed their fate. And, it was just a sort of a show of sort of what Newcastle can be and sort of also what holds them back. We've got Joe Willock scoring in his 7th straight match, equaling the club record with Alan Shearer scoring 7 in a row. Of course, on the week that we hear from our Arteta that of course that he's coming back to the club, and it's just a loan that's served him well for Arsenal's purposes, and of course he'll be an Arsenal player next season. I think that's just the opening bid and sort of a gambit to try to raise the asking price for Willock from the original sort of 20 million to like 25, 30, 35 million. And it's a question of who are the takers. And I don't actually honestly see a lot of competition for Newcastle if they want to get Willock at a 20, 25 million. I don't think that like Chelsea or Man City or Man United is going to swoop in and offer more. So I think in a sense that like Newcastle is kind of competing against themselves or competing against what is Arsenal willing to take. So I think that Willock could be a Newcastle player next season, whether he's on another loan season or bought in the off season, preferably on an installment plan. I've always thought that the best option for Newcastle and Arsenal is for Willock to be bought on installments and to be paying like $5 million for the next 5 seasons, and that would suit Mike Ashley's budget, given that we've got $8 million coming back from the 2 relegated clubs last season that are coming straight back up. It's sort of free $8 million to Mike Ashley, and considering Arsenal is in sort of dire financial straits, and they would be looking for cash infusions and sort of to be guaranteed cash infusions over the next 4 seasons could possibly suit Arsenal's bottom line. So I wouldn't discount a deal for Willock that includes that is factored in on installment plan. Cool. But also I wouldn't. I think the best option for Newcastle for next season for Willock is to have another season-long loan from Arsenal, and then to hopefully get the takeover, and then be able to clearly have the funds in the summer of 2022 to buy Willock outright. So as far as the match, 12th is better than Newcastle and Ashley and Bruce deserve, but it's what the fans deserve because we've been without football supporters in the stands all season. Holly and Steve Wraith were in the stands last Wednesday for the match, and that was a welcome sight and a welcome sound to have supporters back in the stands, and that's what we want next season. But I don't think any of us would think that Steve Bruce would last a season with fans in the stands. He would have been out sometime this season, sacked if fans were in the stands, and I think that's what we would expect next season. So if he's back next season, with no takeover, I wouldn't expect him to last this full season next season.
Thanks, Chris. I think you answered all the questions there, but it's your birthday, so we'll allow that. Cheers, Chris. So I'm going to go with one of Tom's questions here, but I'm going to twist it a bit. Let's say a hypothetical situation. Bruce, Chris has had enough. Let's go with the hypothetical situation where Bruce said, right, I kept Newcastle in the league, in the Premier League, 2 seasons in a row. No one wants me. They're going to boo me when I come back in. I can leave now with the head held high and get another job for another contract, for a 2-3 year contract, rather than who knows how long he'd be at Newcastle for. Who would you take without any takeover? Who would you take to take us into next season? Graham Jones could be an option. Who would you put in the number 1 seat?
That is a cracking question from Tom. I'll do two scenarios. So I suppose the first one is say they said the takeover tomorrow is off, and we're stuck with Ashley. Who do we want going forwards? I'm assuming. And then the second question would be, if we do get the takeover, let's say Rafa takes the Wolves job, and we can't have Rafa. Who is it? Right. Okay. So, I think I've already kind of answered this, but if given a free choice of everybody, and you could attract who you wanted, and we knew the takeover was off, I think I've said it before. I'd go for Frank Lampard. I think Frank Lampard has still got a lot to prove. I think he was very unlucky at Chelsea. I think he'd command instant respect, albeit he's not very experienced, but for what he's done in the game, I think he'd command instant respect. I think he's had really good experiences with Derby in the Championship and also with Chelsea, where I felt like he was sacked a little bit prematurely. And sometimes you just need to stick by someone. I mean, he when he first joined Chelsea, I think he had the transfer ban, didn't he? So he couldn't bring anyone in. Yes. And he really brought along, the likes of Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, Tomori. He brought these young lads into the group, did relatively well. And then, as soon as he has the full season, he makes a host of new signings, and then he doesn't even get half a season out of it. So, yeah, I felt a little bit Frank Lampard. So he would be my number one choice. If the takeover was off, and if we wanted rid of Boost, which we would do, because if the takeover was off, we need to just move on. In terms of a new manager, say we get the takeover and we can't have Rafa, I would probably money no object. I'd probably try and go for Nagelsmann. Probably go for him. I'd like to see a young dynamic manager. I'd like to see someone who, comes in with fresh ideas. I certainly wouldn't be going for, any old heads. Do you know what I mean? I'd try and bring in someone newer, someone fresh, someone with a point to prove. A bit like Chelsea did with Mourinho when they brought him in from Porto. Young, exciting manager with new ideas. That's certainly where the lines I'd be going along. And like I say, if you've got a brand new takeover and all of a sudden you're the richest club in the world, it's quite easy to attract people. So yeah, I would aim high and I'd go for Nagelsmann.
Did he not just take the Bayern Munich job?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he did.
Oh, he signed a pre-contract agreement with Bayern, hasn't he? Right, okay. Well,
no. Sorry to burst that bubble, Chris.
No, you're quite right, mate. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that. I had him on my mind. Okay.
But yeah, no, he would have been great.
He would have been fab, wouldn't he? Yeah, he would have been really good. In terms of somebody else, it'd have to be a big name. It really would. Yeah. But not, as I say, I wouldn't go for like an old head. I'd go for someone, relatively
new ideas.
Yeah. Tell you what, go for the panel. Come back to me. I think now. Yeah. I like Gerrard as a player. I thought he was fantastic, but it's far too close to the Liverpool connection. I'd hate to be singing Gerrard's name and all Liverpool fans buzzing off it. I'd hate it. No, I just wouldn't sit with me that at all.
Nice one, Chris. Nice one.
Yeah.
Holly, what do you think? A manager with no takeover and with Bruce gone, or a manager with takeover?
Without a takeover, and if Bruce was to walk away, which I don't think he would, I think we'd be in a really, really hard situation, to be honest, because I think it'll be another situation when Rafa Benitez left and we couldn't get anyone in. Bruce was like our 12th choice, so many managers rejected the job. I think the exact same would happen again. So you'd be looking 13th, 14th choice, probably someone you've never heard of, or someone that's literally like about 100 years old who's been retired for about 40 years, to be honest. That's, I think, what we'd be looking at. But genuinely, I don't know, because Lampard is a great shout, but I just can't see him coming. I just don't know what manager in the right mind who is competitive would come to Newcastle if we were stuck with Ashley. Like, I can't imagine it. So I can't really give an answer. But if takeover was to go through and we couldn't get Rafa Benitez, I'd probably go for Pochettino. I I think he did really good at Tottenham. I know he got sacked, but I thought that was quite harsh, to be honest. I think he did really great. He got in the Champions League final and then didn't do as well the second year, and they just sacked him straight away. They didn't give him a bit of time. I thought that was harsh. But I think he'd be a great manager. Pretty young to build, certainly. Like, obviously, to start getting new ideas and build, because realistically, we need a whole new setup from the bottom to the very top. We need a complete redo of everything at the club and how it's run. So I think someone like Pochettino would be a great building manager, and then maybe bring someone even better in a few years, but probably Posh.
Cool. Cheers, Holly. Over to you next, Nate, and just bear in mind, comment as well about the style of play of Rafa under Rafa. Yeah. But that was under a strict budget as well. Okay, it was defensive, but look at over to you, Nate. What's your thoughts on the two managers you'd consider?
I think the problem, like, obviously we're aware that Rafa Benitez was the anomaly in terms of appointments in this Ashley era. Came out of nowhere, surprised. I don't think any of us would have expected it when it actually materialized. And I think the as much as we loved Rafa, the issue that we've had since he's left is that he kind of lifted the lid almost, didn't he, on what it's like to be the Newcastle manager. He blew the doors wide open in terms of being the only person to speak out against Mike Ashley and to kind of give everyone a sense in the media and what was going on behind the scenes, how he was treated, how he couldn't sort of. I know Keegan had done it previously with his court case and one thing and another, but that seemed to that seemed to not affect many of the appointments that we'd made after that. But with the doors being blown wide open, it's really made it difficult for any sort of self-respecting manager to want to come to Newcastle United, and that's why we've seen a string of managers of the ilk of Steve Bruce and all these yes men that have kind of come before. That aside, I think there were links to Chris Wilder earlier on when I don't know whether he got sacked or whether he left. It was a bit of a weird situation, that wasn't it, when he left Sheffield. I don't think they could make their mind up what happened to him there. But I thought they played some good football last season. This season was a bit different. I think it's always going to catch up with you, and it's that second season syndrome, wasn't it, for Sheffield this season? Like I mentioned earlier, Graham Jones for me would be the obvious choice, because I think that's realistically what we're going to end up with. Because I jotted a couple of other names down here, like Chris and Holly mentioned, Lampard. I think that'd be a really good shout. I think he's going to be due. I think he's going to come to a team that's around that area where we are in the table. There's a lot of talk of Palace, isn't there, for Lampard? I think that's probably a very sensible place for him to go. I don't think he's going to want to leave London. He's lived there sort of all his life, hasn't he? Played for West Ham and Chelsea, and it's at the time that he was,
Man City. He was at Man City as well, wasn't he, for a season?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. But I think Lampard will probably end up at Crystal Palace. There's talk of Eddie Howe. He's sort of floating around, isn't he? I know he gets linked with Celtic all the time, and Eddie Howe I think would be achievable probably. I think we could get him. I think the difference is now with probably from the team that Rafa took over is if you look at our team, there are some exciting players in there, and I would think that some managers would probably look at that and think, I'd like to work with someone like St. Maximin, Callum Wilson, Almiron, these type of players. And I think that might be a bit of a dangling carrot for some of these managers that we're talking about. I'd like to see Nuno Espirito Santo, but I think he's probably going to go to Tottenham, isn't he? I think he's probably going to end up there after leaving, doing his last game for Wolves today. But yeah, in terms of if there was a takeover, if it wasn't going to be Rafa Benitez, I know there was some talk the other week of Gattuso. I wouldn't mind that, to be honest. I think he'd really shake things up. I think he'd be really.
Yeah, he was.
I think we'd have a couple of entertaining seasons, that's for sure, under his sort of guidance. If I could pick anyone, though, I'd probably look for someone like Bielsa. I know Bielsa's. What's he going to do next? How much further can he take this Leeds team without any sort of serious investment? I saw a really interesting graphic today that someone posted on Twitter, and it was all the yards ran and counter attacks and distances ran and fast breaks completed, and Leeds were first on all these stats for like that we were all around sort of running and work rate kind of thing. And the last stat was players used this season. They only used 23 players all season, so they used less players than any other team, and they had like the furthest sort of running and work rate stats, which I thought was really interesting. But it'd be interesting to see what you could do with some money behind him and you know, and a good and a sort of better team behind him. I'd also like to look at. I don't think this is going to be realistic now that they won La Liga, but Simeone would be a great shout as well. If money's no option and we were chucking money around, I think that would be a good shout. But I think he'll probably try and stay and build on their success from this season and try and break up that monopoly at the top of the Liga.
I don't think Kendall would be happy with that, Nave.
Well, yeah, that's it. Well, I don't know. She supports Newcastle as well, didn't she? So.
Well, true. Yeah, both worlds, I suppose.
Share him. Yeah, just on Bielsa, I'm going to throw one from outside the box here. Forget Bielsa. Go for the translator. Look, it worked for Jose Mourinho. He learned off Sir Bobby Robson, and it turned out he turned out all right. He started as a translator, so go for Bielsa's translator. Bring him in. Get him fresh. He'll win us the Champions League. Yeah.
I can't believe he's not speaking any English. Though. Like, I can't believe he's not doing any press conferences.
He's not even trying, though, is he?
No. How long has he been in England for now? He's been at Leeds like 4 years, 5 years or something. A long time, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Don't you think it's odd as well when he does his interviews? How like, obviously, I know he's getting translators and he's listening and whatever, but he doesn't even look at the camera, does he? He's like that.
Yeah.
And what's with him sitting on that box the whole time?
All right.
During the game. Okay, we'll stop talking Bielsa. Chris, we'll go to you. You answered all the questions earlier, but on the ones about managers, what do you think?
Yes. Well,
no takeover.
Okay, so nobody answered the takeover question. So, of course, Rafa is 100% nailed on for the takeover manager. I don't think the consortium even has a second choice. They, I mean, the whole reason that Amanda Staveley was that the Newcastle Liverpool match was on the invitation of Rafa Benitez. So he's 100% nailed on to be the manager with a takeover. With there being no takeover, I would look sort of outside the box. And you said I don't think Eddie Howe would work under. Would it work under Mike Ashley? I think the guy that would work under Mike Ashley, even though he's previously been sacked by Mike Ashley, would be Chris Hughton. I think Chris Hughton would be an excellent, amazing manager to transition Newcastle from Mike Ashley to the next ownership. I think he would take the job. I think he'd work well with the players, having had the history at Newcastle. I would look to him to be a manager that is in reach and would take the job, because there's plenty of managers that we would think of that wouldn't take the job, and there's sort of plenty of managers that you could think of that sort of wouldn't be up to the job. I think Chris Hughton would be up to the job and take the job. I think all of the other managers we've talked about are sort of unrealistic and would not come to Newcastle. Not to discount all of the valiant contributions of the lads and lasses on this show, but I think we think realistically of who would work under Mike Ashley, given Mike Ashley's history and the prospects of being sort of the transition to a possible takeover or no takeover. I think if you say that the takeover is 100% dead, I think that you would think of somebody like Chris Hughton would take the job, would advance Newcastle to the next ownership beyond PIF, PCP, and the Reuben brothers. I just don't think that, as I said in our previous contribution, that I don't think that that Steve Bruce is a 12th or 13th place manager. I think he's very lucky to be in those positions. But I think that somebody else could position Newcastle to be 10th in the league. I'm not saying that we have the squad to challenge for Europa League positions, but I think we have the potential to be 10th to 12th in the league. But I don't see Steve Bruce continuing his run of luck, and I think somebody like Chris Hughton could be the manager to keep Newcastle in contention, mid-table, if this PIF PCP Reuben Brothers consortium falls through.
Cool. Cheers, Chris. You could ask for Chris Hughton. You might end up with Sam Allardyce. We don't want that. No. So yeah, okay. Another question here that's come in, and this one is especially for you, Chris Hall. You know what's coming here.
Is it my Julie?
No, it's not from Julie. This is from Tom. It's from Tom. Would you sign Andy Carroll again on a pay as you play again for next season? My answer straight away: no way. We did that this season. And okay, fair play to Andy Carroll. Yeah, he's good for the morale and probably team building and stuff like that. But he did stay fit all season. But no, not for me. And when he did there was a game against Arsenal, he played really well. But no, he's taken up a squad place for me. I'd like to see someone younger, more mobile. He's only getting older, and there's no way he'd go 2 seasons without breaking down. What's your thoughts, Chris?
Does. You all know my love for Andy Carroll. Do I think he could do another season at Newcastle? Yeah. Under Bruce, probably not. Considering he was Bruce's signing as well, I am absolutely horrified that he didn't use him as much as he did. But in fairness to Bruce, he sees him train every day. I don't. Because as I've said previously, Daz, and I won't go on about it too much, but the cameos I've seen this season, I think he's got enough. I take your point about him taking up a squad place, but at the same time, you know, we know that we need an overhaul, but we're not going to get one. And you know, for me, I'd much rather see Gale and Muto out the door, and bring in 2 new strikers with Carroll as a backup on a pay-as-you-play. So yeah, I'm kind of saying yeah, and I'm kind of saying no. If somebody said to me, "Oh yeah, you can have Carroll, but Bruce won't play him," then I'd say, "Oh well, there's no point then. Just get rid of him." If Bruce was going to keep him in and around the squad, and you might see him every now and again, then yeah, I do fully think. I don't want him week in, week out playing 90 minutes. I don't want him to do that because I agree he's probably not up to it. But for the right game at the right time, I think he offers something. No centre back in the league will want to play against Andy Carroll. Nobody. And you know what? Everyone will be pleased because they won't have to hear me say that ever again. But nobody likes playing against Andy Carroll. And it was the same with Duncan Ferguson. He's one of those players where if he's fit, he's fantastic, but he's not fit very often, and that's the issue. But if you've got him on a pay-as-you-play deal, I just don't see the harm. If we got to take over tomorrow, I wouldn't sign him up, obviously, because we're going to be getting all different kinds of players, and we can't carry someone like that. But under a Mike Ashley regime, where we've already got 2 other surplus strikers in Gale and Muto, I'd be very surprised if we got rid of Gale, Muto, and Carroll and replaced 3 strikers. Very surprised, very, very, very surprised. And I'd rather Carroll than Gale. Put it that way.
Yeah, and I was just thinking today during the match that. Fulham would be a great destination for Gale. Like we all know he could do it in the championship, especially if they get rid of Mitro. Yeah, but yeah, Holly, what about Carroll? Would you keep him?
Not for me, no. It's quite sad to say that, to be honest, because I do like Carroll as well, and of course he's been a great servant at the club and everything, but I just think under Bruce it won't work out. He's clearly not a player that Bruce kind of sees in his plans, which is a bit weird because he was the one that chose to sign him. I think he could have been used a lot more this season. I don't think we've had the best of him. It's a bit harsh to judge him because, like I say, there's many times where he could have came on and made an impact, but he's never been allowed to be given that chance. The same as Chris, though. Like, I would definitely pick him ahead of Gale. I think Gale's horrendous, to be honest. Championship, great. Premier League, no, he can't cut it at all. And besides Callum Wilson, realistically, who have we got? Joe Linton as well, to be fair to him, he's been all right this season. But beside those 2, like, they're both injured at the minute. So who else have we got? Because I'd much rather play Carroll than Gale. Or obviously, I think Muto's on loan. I mean, he's just a waste. I'd be like getting rid of him or just anything to get rid of him, to be honest. Like, because I don't even see the point in why we signed him. But but sadly, I'd have to let Carroll go just because if it's under Bruce. If it was a different manager that liked him a bit more, I'd probably keep him if things didn't change. But I think he will be gone. Nice
one, Holly. I think Muto is in Spain, but I think he's the team he's playing for were destined to get relegated. So,
Ibar.
Yeah,
he scored like one goal, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's shocking, man.
For a striker, not great, all right. Not a great return. Nate, Andy Carroll.
Yeah, I think just quickly on Muto, I think they tried to send him back, didn't they? I think they tried to. I heard something like they tried to they were discussing about the possibility of sending him back, and Bruce was saying he was annoyed about it because it's like the whole point of him being on loan there or something. So I think that sums up Muto's time at the club. But for me, Andy Carroll, going into next season, I wouldn't sign him up again. Me and Chris H have had a lot of chats about Andy Carroll, haven't we, over the season? And stuff.
I'd well believe it.
No, we have, haven't we? And
we have, yeah.
The thing is with it is, it's the issue is that when he's at the club, he's been at the club all season, but he's not been used properly. He's not been used. No. He's not been utilised at all. So if you're asking me would I take him into next season? No, based on the way he's been used this season, because it's pointless him taking up a number in the squad. We saw, if anyone remembers, that I think it was when we played Arsenal 2 games in a row, 1 cup and then 1 league right after. We gave him a really good game in the cup, didn't we? We went to extra time, and then we sort of rolled over for them in the following Premier League game. But in that, it was fantastic. He was unplayable in that game against Arsenal. They didn't know what to do with him. There were a few games this season where he was just an absolute nightmare for people. I think he was playing out of necessity really, and that we didn't have anyone else available at the time. But utilised well, he's a good player, and he'd give anyone trouble because he's just that way inclined. That's the way he is, his physicality and everything. But what we saw this season was things like whether he's not being played. Me and Chris talked at length about the West Brom game when it was like an awful, horrible game, and we were saying, we don't have the personnel to play our 4-3-3 diamond thing, whatever it is. And we were saying, well, we could have gone 4-4-2. We had Carroll and Gale. I know Gale's not great anyway, but we could have gone 4-4-2 and just played a horrible game of football against them, but we didn't do it. And then we had other opportunities where we'd see Bruce sort of subbing off the only people who can get a ball into the box and bringing Carroll on. He did that a few times. He took Matt Ritchie off and then brought Carroll on at the same time. And it's like, what are you doing, man? Ritchie's the only one who can get the ball into the box decently half the time, isn't he? So, yeah, in this setup, it's pointless having him because Bruce doesn't know how to use him. So I think another year's on the clock as well for him, isn't it? He's not getting any younger. We've got a torrid time with injuries as it is anyway, so we don't want to be carrying another one. It's better to double down on someone. We need to buy our next new centre forward that we're going to sort of keep for the next couple of years. And I know we talked about Mitrovic today. For me, he's a bit of a liability as well. I think he's lost his. He was always liable to get a red card when he plays for us. I think he's calmed down quite a lot. It would seem. I know he does stupid stuff every once in a while now, but I think he's calmed down a bit. But then in calming down, I think he's lost his edge a bit. I think, for me.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. What was I going to say? No, it's gone out of my head. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, Andy Carroll. What can you say about Andy Carroll? It's a player that I think we all would love as a player, but it just in the concept of Andy Carroll, but in practice on the pitch, it just hasn't worked out. I think that another manager would suit Andy Carroll better, but for better or worse. For probably worse, we have got Steve Bruce, and he and Andy Carroll just are not simpatico on sort of the right way to use Andy Carroll. So while a paid as you play is sort of advantageous to the club, I think it takes up a roster spot, and I'm sort of more convinced for next season than I had been convinced the last 2 seasons that Andy Carroll is not worth one of the roster spots. I've been banging on all season, or at least sort of since we were in relative safety, that the club should invest more and play more their young players, which Steve Bruce is sort of inconceivably committed to not playing the young players. And I think that Andy Carroll would be one of the players that sort of stands in the way of the young strikers being put on the first team squad. So in that respect, would you rather develop the young players or have Andy Carroll come back for the pay-you-play? I would have the young players take up a roster spot. And it hurts me to say that because I believe in Andy Carroll as a person, as a player, but I just don't think he fits in this Steve Bruce squad, unfortunately. So, yeah, I think that Andy Carroll has played his last match for Newcastle, unfortunately, and I don't see him back next season.
Cool. Cheers, Chris. Yeah, I remembered what I was going to say as well. It is a big summer ahead for Newcastle. You know, even without a takeover, it's a big summer ahead. There's so many decisions that need to be made. But is anyone going to pull the trigger and making them? We're stuck in limbo again. We'll see what the soap opera brings us next. I just want to say thanks to everyone for watching, and like and comment, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And anyone watching on playback as well, that really helps us, the subscribers. Just as well, that you know, coming up on Loaded Football Weekly on Wednesday, we have our guests are going to be Dictator, really good band, some great tunes actually. I'm going to have a fight with myself what songs I'm going to put on the system, but yeah, that's coming up on Wednesday at 8:00. And also we will do a season finale with Loaded Mag as well. So that will be coming up. We have no date target yet. We still have a planner meeting. we gave up on planning meetings about 2 or 3 months ago. But so we will run this show kind of just run through the whole season and look back at everything. We'll get anyone that's available. If any of you guys are available, more welcome to join us. We'll get a few of us. Just want to say as well, thanks to everyone. I think we'll cut it short there tonight. It has been a bit of make it up as you go along tonight. Martin was do the planning for this, so unfortunately he had to step out. Richie is out having a few drinks today, and Pete is nursing a hangover. So we thanks to Nathan for joining us. Thanks to Chris A for joining us on his birthday, and thanks to Holly for joining us. And thanks to you as well, Chris H. See you on Wednesday, buddy, and see everyone as well. So thank you. Thanks for watching, and see you soon. Good luck.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.